They didn't just think I was a failure. That night, my family made sure everyone at my brother's engagement dinner knew it. I sat quietly at the table with my napkin folded across my knees while my father laughed about my lost years. My brother smiled. My mother nodded as if he had stated a fact. I didn't interrupt. I didn't defend myself. I had learned a long time ago that explaining yourself to people who had already decided who you were usually made them more certain. Then my brother's fiancée looked across the table at me. Really looked at me. Her smile disappeared. She leaned slightly forward. Wait. The room didn't go silent yet. Not completely. But something changed. Her eyes narrowed. Rachel Carter? I looked up. Yes. Her expression changed again. No. She shook her head slowly. You're not just Rachel Carter. My brother laughed. What is that supposed to mean? She didn't look at him. She kept staring at me. You're the founder. That was when the room went still. My mother's hand froze halfway to her wine glass. My father stopped smiling. My brother looked from Claire to me, waiting for someone to explain the joke. There wasn't one. Claire reached for her phone. And within 30 seconds, every story my family had told about me for the last 5 years began falling apart. My name is Rachel Carter. I was 34 years old when that dinner happened. And if you had asked my family to describe me that morning, they probably would have used words like uncertain, unfocused, difficult, still figuring things out. They would have said it gently. That was important to them. My parents were never cruel in obvious ways. They didn't scream. They didn't insult me in front of strangers. They preferred concern. Concern sounded respectable. Concern let them say things that would have sounded ugly if they said them honestly. We're just worried about Rachel. We want her to have stability. She's very independent. She always has to do things the hard way. My mother, Susan, was 62. My father, Robert, was 65. They had spent most of their adult lives surrounded by people who believed success had a recognizable shape. Job title. House. Car. Retirement plan. Business cards. Things you could explain in one sentence at a dinner party. My older brother Michael fit that world perfectly. Michael was 38. He worked in commercial real estate. He wore tailored jackets even when nobody required them. He owned a large house in the suburbs. He played golf with clients. He posted photographs from airport lounges. My parents understood Michael. More importantly, they could explain him to other people. He's a senior development director. He manages major projects. He's doing extremely well. They said his accomplishments like they were sharing family credentials. Then someone would ask about me. That was where their voices changed. Rachel is doing something with technology. Or, she works remotely. Or my favorite. She's experimenting with a business idea. 5 years earlier, I had left a stable corporate job. That was the moment my family decided I had stepped off the road. I had worked for a logistics software company in Chicago. Good salary. Good insurance. Promotion track. My father loved telling people I worked in supply chain technology. He didn't understand what I did. That didn't matter. It sounded respectable. Then I quit. I moved into a smaller apartment. I stopped buying new clothes. I drove the same Honda I'd had since I was 28. And I began building something nobody in my family understood. The idea came from a problem I had seen over and over while working in logistics. Small and mid-sized manufacturers were terrible at seeing disruptions before they happened. A delayed shipment in Rotterdam. A warehouse bottleneck in Dallas. A storm affecting a port in Asia. Each problem looked separate. But by the time companies realized how the pieces connected, they were already losing money. I wanted to build a platform that could see the connections earlier. Not predict the future. Just give companies enough warning to make better decisions. At first, it was me. A laptop. A spreadsheet. And a friend named Noah who knew more about machine learning than any person should be allowed to know. We worked nights. Then weekends. Then every hour that didn't belong to something else. We called the company Meridian Loop. My parents hated the name. What does that even mean? My father asked. It doesn't have to mean anything. That's not reassuring. Michael was worse. So what exactly do you sell? Software. To who? Manufacturers. Logistics teams. Do they pay you? Some do. He smiled. Then call me when all of them do. That was Michael. He rarely attacked directly. He preferred jokes. Jokes gave him somewhere to hide if you reacted. For the first year, My family's concern was almost reasonable. My savings dropped. I worked from home. I missed holidays because of calls. I had investors say no. Customers walk away. Servers crash. Contracts collapse at the last second. I failed constantly. That's something nobody tells you about building anything from scratch. Failure isn't the opposite of progress. Sometimes it is the schedule. Every week, something went wrong. And every week we fixed it. By the second year, Meridian Loop had 12 paying clients. By the third, 47. Then one of our customers introduced us to a national distributor. That contract changed everything. We hired. Quietly. We expanded. Quietly. Then a European logistics group wanted a pilot. Then 2. Then 6. Suddenly, our little system was tracking shipment risk across 11 countries. That was when investors started returning calls. The same people who had ignored us 18 months earlier were now telling us they had always believed in the space. I learned another important lesson. Success attracts people who remember your history differently. But there was a problem. Meridian Loop was still fragile. We were negotiating a major strategic partnership. We were also in the middle of a funding round. Everything was confidential. Not secret forever. Just not public yet. Our lawyers were clear. No casual conversations. No interviews. No discussing valuations. No talking publicly about partners. A single loose statement could create problems. So when my parents asked, "How's the little company?" I said, "Fine." When Michael asked, "Still doing the startup thing?" I said, "Yes." When my mother offered to ask one of Michael's friends if they had an administrative position open, I said, "Thank you, but I'm okay." My silence became evidence. The less I explained, the more certain they became. Then came the networking dinner. My parents hosted one at their house every spring. Wine. Cheese. People in expensive jackets standing near the pool talking about investments. I had gone the year before. I spent 40 minutes explaining to a retired accountant that I was not unemployed. Apparently, my mother had told him I was between opportunities. The following year, I saw photographs of the party online. I hadn't been invited. When I called my mother, she sounded surprised. "Oh, sweetheart, it was mostly business people." "So?" "I just didn't want you to feel uncomfortable." I sat on the edge of my bed. "You thought inviting me would make me uncomfortable." "I thought the conversations might." "What conversations?" "You know. Investments. Real estate. Business." I almost laughed. Instead, I said, "Okay." Exclusion had been reframed as kindness. That became a pattern. At a family barbecue, my father introduced Michael to a neighbor as the one carrying the family business instinct. Then he looked at me and added, "Rachel always liked the creative route." Creative route. I ran software infrastructure supporting millions of dollars in shipments. But fine. Creative. Michael once called me 3 days before a charity dinner. "Do you need something to wear?" I thought he was being nice. "No." "Why?" "It's pretty formal." "I own dresses." "I know." He hesitated. "I just don't want you to feel underdressed." I stared at my phone. "What do you think I wear to work?" "You work from home." He laughed. I didn't. By the time Michael got engaged, I had stopped correcting any of them. His fiancée was Claire Bennett. 33. Smart. Calm. Director of strategy at a transportation consulting firm. The first time I met her was at the engagement dinner. That surprised people later. But Michael and Claire had dated for less than a year. Their schedules were busy. I had been traveling. And family events had become something I attended selectively. The dinner was held in a private room at a downtown restaurant. Dark wood. Soft lights. White tablecloths. Heavy silverware. The kind of place my parents loved because everyone looked successful under warm lighting. There were 14 people. Our family. Claire's parents. 2 of Michael's closest friends. An aunt and uncle. And a few people I assumed were important to somebody. I arrived exactly on time. My mother looked relieved. "You made it." "Why wouldn't I? You're always so busy." That was new. Usually she described me as directionless. Apparently, busyness was acceptable if it did not require explanation. She kissed my cheek. Then looked at my dress. Yes. I knew what that meant. You dressed appropriately. Thank goodness. Michael saw me. "Hey, trouble." He hugged me. Then held me at arm's length. You clean up well. Thank you. I mean it. I know. Claire was beside him. Michael introduced us. This is my sister, Rachel. Claire smiled. I've heard a lot about you. I doubted that. Hopefully, some of it was true. Michael laughed. She's the mysterious one. Claire's eyes rested on me for half a second longer than expected. Mysterious? Michael waved a hand. She does tech stuff. I smiled. That clears it up. Claire laughed. Michael didn't notice the joke was at his expense. Dinner began. I was seated 2 chairs away from Michael. Claire sat across from me. For the first half hour, conversation stayed on the wedding. Venue. Flowers. Dates. Guest lists. Then business entered the room. It always did. Claire's father asked Michael about a new development project. Michael spoke for 10 minutes. My father added details Michael had forgotten. My mother mentioned how proud they were. Someone raised a glass. I smiled. Then one of Claire's aunts turned toward me. And Rachel, what do you do? Before I could answer, my mother leaned forward. She works in technology. I looked at her. She's been building something for a while, she continued. Her tone was careful. Kind. Almost apologetic. My father added. She's always been willing to take the unconventional route. Michael smirked. That's one way to say it. A few people laughed politely. Claire didn't. I took a sip of water. The aunt smiled. That sounds exciting. It is. My mother touched my arm. She's very private about it. Private. Not confidential. Not professional. Private. As if the reason nobody understood my work was a personality flaw. Dinner continued. My father talked about Michael. My mother talked about the wedding. I became background. That was familiar. Then someone asked how Michael and I had been as children. My father laughed. Completely different. Michael always had focus. I knew what was coming. Rachel had imagination. Another polite laugh. She still does, Michael said. My mother smiled at me. We're very proud of both of them. People say things like that when they realize they may have gone too far. The conversation moved on. But Claire kept watching me. Not constantly. Just enough for me to notice. She listened differently from everyone else. When Michael talked, she asked specific questions. When my father exaggerated, she looked at Michael rather than automatically believing him. She watched pauses. Tone. What people avoided. At one point, my father described Michael as the steady one. Claire glanced at me. I knew she had heard the implication. Later, my mother started talking about future grandchildren. Claire smiled. Michael laughed. Then my mother turned toward me. And maybe someday Rachel will meet someone who can slow her down. I felt my shoulders tighten. Mom. What? She smiled. I'm just saying it would be nice for you to have some stability. I'm stable. Of course you are. The answer came too quickly. Michael leaned back. She means financially. My father gave him a warning look. Too late. I stared at Michael. He lifted his glass. I'm kidding. There it was. The escape hatch. I'm kidding. Claire put down her fork. For the first time that evening, she looked uncomfortable. My mother tried to repair it. Rachel has always been independent. Michael smiled. Very independent. What exactly does that mean? Claire asked. Everyone looked at her. She looked at Michael. You keep saying she's independent like it means something specific. Michael shrugged. She just does her own thing. Claire looked at me. What thing? I almost smiled. Before I could answer, Michael jumped in. Like I said. Tech. What kind? Complicated. Claire's eyes stayed on mine. Rachel? Logistics technology. Her expression shifted. Only slightly. What part of logistics? Operational risk. Michael laughed. See? This is what she does. Claire ignored him. What kind of operational risk? Supply chain disruptions. Her eyebrows lifted. Visibility? Partly. Forecasting? Partly. Now I was paying attention too. Claire knew the language. She leaned forward. Network, level? Yes. Global? Yes. My brother sighed dramatically. Can we not turn my engagement dinner into a software conference? Claire still didn't look at him. Are you in optimization? Yes. Predictive routing? Some. Her face changed. I saw recognition begin before she was certain. What's the platform called? That was the question. I glanced around the table. Everyone was waiting. I could have avoided it. I almost did. Then I said, Meridian Loop. Claire stopped moving. My father frowned. My mother smiled as if the name meant nothing. Michael took another drink. Claire stared at me. Meridian Loop? Yes. The Meridian Loop? I almost laughed. I don't think there are many. She leaned back. Then forward again. Wait. Nobody understood yet. She studied my face. Rachel Carter. Yes. You're the founder. Silence. My father's expression didn't change at first. He simply looked confused. Michael laughed. What? Claire reached for her phone. Michael touched her arm. Babe, what are you doing? She pulled away without noticing. She typed quickly. Then turned the screen toward herself. Her eyes scanned. She looked back at me. You are. I nodded once. She stared. Michael leaned closer. Founder of what? Claire turned the phone toward the table. It was an industry article. The headline mentioned Meridian Loop. No photograph of me. That had been intentional. We had avoided founder profiles. But my name was there. Rachel Carter, founder and CEO. Claire scrolled. International expansion. She looked at me. 11 countries? 12 now. My father leaned forward. 12 countries? I nodded. Claire kept reading. Pilot network with major manufacturers. She stopped herself. Probably realized some details were not public. Then she looked at me. My firm has been trying to get a meeting with Meridian Loop for 4 months. Michael stared at her. What? We've been trying to get a meeting. With Rachel? With her company. She looked back at me. Our transportation strategy team has been tracking you since the European rollout. My mother's smile disappeared. My father looked at me as if I had changed chairs when he wasn't looking. Michael shook his head. No. Claire frowned. No what? This can't be right. It is. If Rachel was running something like that, we would know. Claire looked at him. Would you? Michael stared. Then he turned toward me. Why didn't you tell us? There were 1,000 answers. Because you laughed. Because you never listened. Because every time I tried to explain, you turned it into a joke. Because silence was easier. Instead, I gave the simplest answer. You never asked. My father looked hurt. We asked. No. I shook my head. You asked whether I was still doing that startup thing. My mother opened her mouth. I continued. You asked whether I needed help finding a real job. Michael shifted. You could have corrected us. I did. When? The first year. Nobody spoke. I explained what I was building. I looked at my father. You told me 90% of startups fail. His face changed. I looked at my mother. You asked if I had thought about teaching. Then Michael. You asked when I was going to grow up. He stared at the table. After that, I stopped explaining. My mother looked close to tears. We were worried. I know. That isn't the same as not caring. No. I nodded. It isn't. My father looked at Claire's phone. How big is the company? I smiled faintly. That's the first real question any of you have asked me tonight. He looked ashamed. Michael looked irritated. That difference mattered. Claire was still watching me. Not with admiration. With something better. Understanding. You stayed quiet because of the funding round, she said. I looked at her. How did you know? Industry rumor. She smiled. Everybody is trying to figure out what you're doing. My brother laughed once. A hard sound. This is unbelievable. Claire looked at him. Why? Because. He stopped. Because the answer was ugly. Because he had built part of his identity around being the successful sibling. My father tried again. Rachel, we are proud of you. The words should have felt good. Instead, they felt late. Thank you. My mother reached toward me. I stood. I should go. What? Her eyes widened. We haven't even had dessert. I'm tired. Michael looked at me. So you drop this on everyone and leave. I stared. I didn't drop anything. Claire answered before I could. You did. Michael looked at her. She answered a question. He frowned. Claire continued. Actually, I asked the question. My father pushed back his chair. Rachel, stay. I don't want this to become another performance. His expression fell. It isn't. Dad. I looked around the table. 10 minutes ago, I was the family problem. That's not true, my mother said. I looked at her. She stopped. Now suddenly everyone is proud. I picked up my purse. I need time to understand what changed. Michael stood. Nothing changed. That was the first honest thing he had said. I looked at him. You're right. He seemed surprised. Nothing about me changed. Then I left. Outside, the night air felt cold. Clean. I walked 1 block before stopping. My phone buzzed. Mom. Then Dad. Then Michael. I didn't answer. I had imagined moments like that before. Not specifically, but the idea. One day, they'll understand. One day they'll see. One day, success will explain me. It didn't feel the way I had imagined. There was satisfaction. Yes. I won't pretend there wasn't. But underneath it, was grief. Because I had just proven something I no longer wanted to prove. I didn't want my family to respect me because Claire recognized a company name. I wanted them to care when they thought the company might fail. The next morning, my mother called at 7:42. Il était ring. At 8:15, she texted. Please call me. At 9:10, my father texted. Your mother is upset. That made me laugh. Not because it was funny. Because somehow my mother's feelings had already become the emergency. At 11, I called her. She answered immediately. Rachel. I'm so sorry. I waited. We had no idea. I know. You should have told us. There it was. Not even 30 seconds. Mom. What? You're apologizing and blaming me in the same sentence. Silence. That's not what I meant. I know. She sighed. We thought you were struggling. I did struggle. But you're successful. Now. You know what I mean. I leaned back in my office chair. No, I don't. Another pause. We were trying to protect you. From what? Disappointment. I looked through the glass wall at my team. People moving. Talking. Building. Mom, I was disappointed hundreds of times. I know. No, you don't. She became quiet. You weren't there for those parts. That hurt her. I heard it. But it was true. When we lost our first major client, I didn't tell you. Why? Because I knew what Dad would say. What? That maybe it was time to stop. She didn't answer. When our first investor pulled out, I didn't tell you. Rachel, when I had $18,000 left in the company account and payroll was due in 9 days, I didn't tell you. Her breath caught. Why would you not tell us? Because I needed courage. I looked at the floor. And every conversation with you made me feel like quitting would make you relieved. She started crying. Quietly. I hated that. I hated hurting her. But truth doesn't become cruelty just because someone cries when they hear it. I love you, she said. I know. We never wanted you to feel alone. I know. That was the tragedy. They hadn't wanted it. They had simply created it. The call ended without resolution. That afternoon, Michael called. I almost didn't answer. Then I did. Hey. He sounded casual. Too casual. Hey. Wild night. Sure. He laughed. Claire's still talking about your company. I waited. She says you guys are impossible to reach. There it was. 20 seconds. Not an apology. Not how are you. Business. Okay. She mentioned her firm has been trying to get a strategy meeting. I heard. So. I closed my eyes. So? I thought maybe you could help. With what? Come on, Rachel. No, say it. He sounded irritated. Get Claire's team a meeting. With Meridian Loop? Yes. No. Silence. What? No. You're serious? Yes. Why? Because that isn't how we schedule partnerships. Rachel, it's one meeting. No. My fiancé's firm could be a major client. Then they can go through business development. They have. Then somebody will evaluate it. He laughed sharply. So this is what you're doing now. What? Punishing me. I sat forward. Michael, I am not punishing you. You know how important this could be for Claire. Then I'm sure she'll understand why I can't interfere. She's your future sister-in-law. That makes it worse, not better. He exhaled. You could just do one favor. That sentence explained more than he understood. Yesterday, I had been an embarrassment. Today, I was leverage. Michael. What? Do you know how many employees Meridian Loop has? Silence. No. Do you know what I actually do every day? You run the company. That isn't an answer. He sighed. What does this have to do with anything? Everything. He became angry. This is exactly why nobody can talk to you. I almost laughed. No. I said quietly. This is why nobody in this family knows me. He hung up. An hour later, Claire called. I stared at her name. Then answered. I'm sorry. For Michael? For myself too. You didn't do anything. I recognized you at dinner and turned your life into a presentation. I smiled. That's dramatic. Still true. She paused. I also want you to know I did not ask Michael to call you. I believed her immediately. I guessed. He told me after. How did that go? Badly. I laughed. Claire didn't. Rachel, can I ask you something? Sure. Did your family genuinely not know? No. How? There was no judgment in the question. Only confusion. I stopped telling them. Why? Because every update became advice about quitting. She was quiet. Then she said. Michael told me you were unemployed for almost a year. I laughed. I worked 18 hours a day that year. He said you were living off savings. That part is true. He said you couldn't find direction. That part is not. Claire exhaled. I feel like I've been hearing about two different people. You have. What do you mean? You met Michael's version of me before you met me. She was silent for a long moment. Then, how can someone know so little about his own sister? I didn't answer. Because that was her question to solve. The weeks after the dinner were strange. My father began texting me articles about startups. Most were irrelevant. My mother sent congratulations every time Meridian Loop appeared online. One morning, she forwarded an article and wrote, "We always knew you were going to do something special." I stared at the message. Then deleted my reply. Because what could I say? No, you didn't. Would that help? My parents were trying. But they were trying to rewrite the past before understanding it. That was harder for me than anger. At least anger was honest. Then my father did something that irritated me more than all of it. He told people. At the grocery store. At church. At dinner with friends. My daughter founded Meridian Loop. My daughter's company works internationally. My daughter is in logistics technology. Suddenly, my father understood my job well enough to brag about it. My mother called one Sunday. Your father is so proud. Was he proud last year? Silence. Rachel. I'm asking. He was worried. Mom, worry and pride can exist together. She didn't answer. That was the problem. Their pride had always been conditional on proof. Michael stopped calling me. Claire didn't. Not often. A text occasionally. Nothing about business. Once she sent me a photograph from a wedding venue. Too much? I replied. Way too much. She sent back. Thank you. We slowly became friendly. That surprised both of us. Then one evening, Claire asked if I wanted coffee. I almost declined. Then curiosity won. We met at a small cafe downtown. She looked tired. No wedding binder? I asked. She smiled. Burned it. That seems expensive. Emotionally necessary. I knew immediately something was wrong. What happened? She stared at her coffee. Michael and I had a fight. I'm sorry. It was about you. I leaned back. That sounds healthy. She smiled faintly. I asked him why he called you after the dinner. He told you. Yes. And? He said he was trying to help my career. That sounds noble. He also said you owed him. My expression changed. Owed him what? Claire looked embarrassed. He said he'd defended you to your parents for years. I laughed. I couldn't help it. What? He told me he was always supportive. I shook my head. Claire. I know. How? Because I asked for examples. Smart woman. He couldn't give me any. She traced a finger around her cup. Then I asked him what you were like in college. What did he say? That you were stubborn. What music do I like? He didn't know. Favorite food? He didn't know. Where did I work before Meridian? He guessed. Wrong? Very. I smiled sadly. Claire looked up. Then I asked him the question. What question? How can you know so little about your own sister? The same one she had asked me. What did he say? She never told us. I waited. Claire looked almost embarrassed. So I asked him. She paused. Did you ever ask? Something inside me tightened. Not pain exactly. Recognition. Claire continued. He got angry. That sounds like Michael. He said I was taking your side. There shouldn't be sides. I know. She looked down. That's what scares me. What? I'm marrying into a family where knowing the official version seems more important than knowing the person. That was bigger than me. Claire stayed with Michael. At least then. I didn't tell her what to do. I had learned enough about family to know outside advice becomes easy to blame later. But something in their relationship had changed. Michael blamed me. Indirectly. My mother called once. Your brother thinks you and Claire have gotten too close. We've had coffee twice. He feels uncomfortable. Why? He thinks she respects your opinion. That seems dangerous. My mother sighed. You know what I mean. I do. Then came the announcement. Meridian Loop closed its funding round. Publicly. For the first time, the company was everywhere in our industry. Articles. Interviews. Panels. Photographs. My name became searchable in a way it hadn't been before. My parents sent the articles to everyone they knew. Michael sent nothing. Claire sent one message. Congratulations. You earned this long before anyone noticed. That message meant more than every proud post my parents shared. 3 months after the engagement dinner, my father called. Not texted. Called. Rachel. Hi, Dad. Are you free Saturday? For what? Coffee. That surprised me. Why? He was quiet. Because I realized something. I waited. I know exactly what Michael does every day. I said nothing. I know which projects he's working on. Another pause. I know his boss's name. His voice changed. I don't even know what kind of coffee you drink. I closed my eyes. He continued. I don't want to ask about the company. That mattered. I don't want to ask how much it's worth. That mattered even more. I want to ask about you. For a long time, I didn't answer. Then I said. Saturday. We met Etten. A small cafe near my office. Dad arrived early. He always did. He stood when I walked in. He looked nervous. I had never seen my father nervous around me. That felt strange. What do you drink? He asked. Americano. Black? 1 sugar. He nodded. As if memorizing it. Visat. For the first few minutes, we talked about nothing important. Weather. Parking. My mother's garden. Then Dad said. I owe you an apology. I looked at him. He didn't immediately add an excuse. Good start. I thought success looked one way. I waited. And because your life didn't look that way, I decided it meant you were lost. His eyes dropped. That was arrogant. I didn't rescue him. He needed to finish. I kept telling myself I was worried about you. He looked at me. But worry became an excuse not to listen. My throat tightened. You were working. Yes. You always were. Yes. I just didn't respect the work until somebody else told me it was important. There it was. The truth. I'm sorry. I looked out the window. For years, I had imagined hearing those words. I thought they would fix something instantly. They didn't. But they created space. That hurt, I said. I know. No. I looked at him. You know now. He nodded slowly. That's fair. I needed you when the company was failing. His face changed. You never told us. I tried. He closed his eyes. Then nodded. I know. That was different. No defense. No. But. We talked for 2 hours. Not about valuation. Not about clients. About me. He asked why I chose logistics. What my office looked like. Whether I liked being CEO. I told him I hated being called CEO. He laughed. He asked what scared me most. That question nearly broke me, because nobody in my family had ever asked it. What scares you? He repeated. Being responsible for people. What do you mean? Payroll. I smiled. People have mortgages. Kids. Medical bills. Every decision I make affects more than a spreadsheet. He listened. Really listened. By the time we left, nothing was fixed. But something had begun. My relationship with my mother took longer. She was more defensive. Every apology came attached to an explanation. We were just worried. We didn't know. You were always so private. Eventually, I told her. Mom, I don't need you to prove you were a good mother. She started crying. I continued. I need you to admit there were times you didn't see me. That was harder for her. But eventually, she did. Michael never really apologized. Not then. He became quieter around me. The joke stopped. That was something. Then 6 months after the engagement dinner, Claire called. Her voice sounded strange. Can I see you? We met that evening. She wasn't wearing her engagement ring. I saw it immediately. She saw me see it. We ended it. I'm sorry. She laughed softly. Everyone says that. What should I say? I don't know. She looked at the empty place on her hand. It wasn't because of you. I know. But the dinner started something. I stayed quiet. I watched him talk about you. She swallowed. Then I watched him change after he realized what you had. What did he change? The way he said your name. I understood. Before, you were embarrassing. She looked at me. After, you were useful. That hurt because it was exactly what I had felt. Claire continued. Then I started wondering what would happen if I failed. I looked at her. What? My career. If I lost my job. She took a breath. If I stopped being someone he was proud to introduce. I had no answer. That question wouldn't leave me alone. She looked sad. So I left. I reached across the table. She took my hand. For the first time, I understood something about that engagement dinner I hadn't understood before. I thought the reveal had been about me. It wasn't. Not entirely. Everybody at that table learned something. My parents learned they had confused appearances with truth. Michael learned the family story he controlled could collapse in seconds. Claire learned the man she planned to marry judged people more than she realized. And I learned success could reveal other people without changing me at all. A year later, Meridian Loop moved into a larger office. My parents came to the opening. My mother brought flowers. My father wore a suit even though I told him not to. He looked around quietly. Employees. Screens. Meeting rooms. Maps. People moving in and out. This is what you built? Yes. He smiled. Not the proud public smile. Something smaller. I wish I'd seen it earlier. So do I. My mother hugged me. I'm proud of you. I believed her. But this time, it wasn't the sentence that mattered. Later, when everyone left, she stayed behind. She looked at a photograph on my desk. Noah and me sitting on the floor of our first office surrounded by pizza boxes. Who's that? Noah. You started the company together? Yes. She sat down. What was that time like? I looked at her. She was asking. Finally. So I told her. Not the polished version. The real one. The nights. The debt. The fear. The first contract. The first employee. The first time payroll cleared with less than $1,000 left in the account. She listened. At one point, she covered her mouth. You went through all that? Yes. Alone? No. I smiled. But without you. She cried. So did I. That was the beginning of something more honest between us. Years ago, I thought being underestimated was the worst part. It wasn't. The worst part was letting other people's assumptions become something I carried. Every family gathering, I walked in prepared to defend myself. Even when I said nothing, I was bracing. Waiting for the joke. The advice. The concerned expression. The comparison. That engagement dinner changed something. Not because Claire exposed my success. Because after that night, I stopped trying to manage everyone's opinion of me. My father eventually understood me better. My mother tried. Michael and I remained distant. I accepted that. Not every family relationship becomes close simply because the truth arrives. Some people apologize. Some adapt. Some stay exactly where they are. Resolution doesn't always mean reconciliation. Sometimes it means clarity. I no longer needed Michael to respect me. I no longer needed my mother to explain me correctly at dinner parties. I no longer needed my father to brag about me. And strangely, once I stopped needing those things, I became more open to the smaller things they could genuinely give. Coffee. Question. Honest apologies. A phone call that did not begin with advice. Those mattered more. People often ask what happened to Claire. We stayed friends. Not inseparable, but real friends. She eventually joined another consulting firm. 2 years later, her company became a Meridian Loop client. She never asked me for the meeting. She went through our business development team like everyone else. When the contract was approved, she sent me one message. I did it properly. I replied. I noticed. She eventually married someone else. I went to the wedding. My brother did not. Life is complicated. It rarely gives everyone the ending they imagined. As for Michael, we see each other on holidays. He is polite. I am polite. Sometimes that is enough. Last Christmas, he asked me, "How's Meridian?" I said, "Good." Then he surprised me. "What's the hardest thing you're working on right now?" I stared at him. "What?" He looked uncomfortable. "I'm trying to ask a better question." That was the closest thing to an apology I had ever received from him. So I answered. We talked for 20 minutes. Not everything has to be dramatic to matter. Sometimes progress sounds like a brother asking one real question 6 years late. And maybe that is what I remember most from that engagement dinner. Not Claire holding up her phone. Not my father's expression. Not Michael's chair scraping across the floor. I remember the moment my father asked, "Why didn't you tell us?" And I said, "You never asked." For years, I thought those words meant, "You failed me." Now I think they mean something else too. Ask no. There is still time. Ask your daughter what she is building. Ask your son why he is quiet. Ask your mother what she gave up. Ask your father what he regrets. Ask the person you think you understand one question you've never asked before. You may discover you have been living beside a stranger. My family thought I was failing because they never looked closely enough to see what I was building. But in the end, I didn't need them to be impressed by my success. I needed something much simpler. I needed them to become interested in me. Not Rachel the founder. Not Rachel, the CEO. Not Rachel, whose company appeared in industry articles. Just Rachel, the daughter who drank an Americano with 1 sugar. The sister who hated being the punchline. The woman who had spent years working quietly because she believed building something mattered more than explaining it. The person who had been sitting at their table all along. If you had been in my place that night, would you have stayed and explained everything? Or would you have walked away? And do you think Rachel's family deserved another chance after years of underestimating her? Tell me what you would have done in the comments. I always enjoy reading how you handle difficult family situations. If this story stayed with you, please like the video, share it with someone who has ever felt underestimated, and subscribe to Hidden Stories for more emotional stories about family, betrayal, misunderstanding, forgiveness, second chances, and the truths people sometimes discover far too late. Because sometimes the people closest to us don't need proof that we succeeded. They just need to learn how to ask who we really are. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.